Trump voters that are now not supporting him. What was the last straw? The government shut down last year. He couldn't get Mexico to pay for the wall like he promised, so he tries to get America to pay for it. Congress rightfully tells him to He shuts down the government until Congress signs the bill to fund it. After a few weeks of government shutdown, he takes to Twitter to say that Nancy Pelosi is responsible for the shutdown, because she should have just signed the bill. 40-ish days of shutdown where government workers were expected to still do their jobs and pay bills, but not get paid until it ended. He literally held millions of Americans' incomes hostage when he couldn't fulfill a totally ridiculous campaign promise, and tried to pass the blame on to the people who dare to resist him. I was never a supporter, but I always tried to be optimistic and realized he could do some good somewhere along the way. Then the travel ban kept Kurdish vets from coming here to start a life like we promised them for helping us in the Middle East for over a decade. Kurdish vets and their immediate families who sold off all of their assets and prepared to come here were suddenly homeless. Okay. But maybe this will get fixed. Then there's the more recent situation with the Kurds. It's unbelievable. These people have been dying so that some of us don't have to, and have been a huge help to the war on terror, and they're being tossed aside like a used napkin. When he was to Mattis, round Christmas, submitted his resignation because Trump tweeted that we were pulling out of Syria. Mattis gave until the end of February, long enough for a replacement Sakadev to be found, confirmed, and brought up to speed. Trump flipped and fired him. Mattis was the only adult in the room. Didn't join in on that group praise session with Trump, gave about our allies, and took up the office of Secretary of Defense because the Oval Office asked, not the man, and because he felt that his duty was to the American people and the members of the military. Pardoning Joe Arpaio. August 27, 2017. That was what I considered the first major violation when a president shouldn't be using his power like that, for me, and that's when I started to take a closer look to see who Trump actually was. I thought he was doing a good job until about a year ago while I was scrolling through his Twitter trying to find a tweet, and it clicked in my head how much of a dumbass he is. He tweets like a 7th grade bully, and his entire platform being based on insulting his opponents instead of engaging them in arguments. Also, many of his supporters are borderline cultists who treat him as a god. For me, it was when Trump took 13 days to visit Puerto Rico after 3,057 of our brothers and sisters died in the second worst disaster in USA history, even more than 9/11. That was just under 3,000 Americans died that day. But that is war-related crimes. Puerto Rico was a natural disaster. He was there for 4 hours and spoke for 20 minutes. In that time you can find the video online. He throws paper towels like he hoopin', like he hoopin' at the Puerto Ricans in line for basic needs to survive, and not continue to die. To reach the 3,000 plus deaths within those 13 days, people died of starvation and basic medical needs. I get it, some people will say he was joking. But I just think that was weird. He spoke for about 20 minutes. Here are some of the words of encouragement and motivational speech he gives after more than 3,000 people die. Now, I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine, the president said after hurricane. He waited 13 days and tweeted 7 times. Then when he arrives, he talking like this? I got sucked hard into the anti-SJW community on the internet. I thought Hillary Clinton was the embodiment of everything I feared, and I was thinking more about that than Trump. The weird thing is, pretty much from the moment he took office, it felt like a fog was lifted and I was suddenly horrified. I realized that I had been listening to a horde of assholes, and that they had convinced me to help put the biggest asshole of them all in power. The only thing that I could say that I liked about him was that he was going to get us out of foreign entanglements, but we can all see how that turned out in Syria. When I look back and try to figure out why I was so scared of Hillary, all I can think of is that she campaigned a little too hard on her being a woman as a valid indicator of her qualification for the job. It's all ridiculous in retrospect. As an outsider, I live in Canada but was married to a girl from South Carolina. I was blown away by the hard party lines that people vote on in the States. It seems the moment you are born you are either D or R and aren't allowed to change, ever. This is what is so amazing watching this all unfold. Trump is on the constitution and legal system of your country, cozying up to dictators and a whole lot of other sketchy things, and people still blindly support him. I commend people that have changed their mind. It means they are actually thinking about issues rather than blindly emotionally following a construct they are not allowed to change. I really only voted for him because I didn't know any better. This was my first election as a fresh 18-year-old and being from a very red state. It was only after going to college and living in my own did I really start to form my own thoughts on things. Red media does work wonders, especially when you have parents that only watch Fox News. I voted for Trump. I am economically conservative but socially liberal. I voted for Trump hoping he'd do what he said he'd do, come in and clean house. Fire the corrupt. He seemed to have the balls and the I don't give a attitude to get it done. Nope. I feel swindled. He has done none of what he promised, and his tweets are embarrassing. I will not vote for him again. When he decided to start flinging executive orders around when he didn't get his way, and using, literal, bullying to defend himself against people of opposition. A leader doesn't act in that manner. The moment he backed out of the Iran deal. We had finally reached an agreement that would curb Iran's nuclear program and have them under Sharia, while still bringing them into the international market and accepting them into our world economy. Now, we have the hardliners in Iran have more power because of this move, and our word means nothing now. No country will ever make deals with us when we see how easily we can back out of them. It ruined our credibility. The deal wasn't even that bad. I bet he didn't even read the damn thing. I'm biting my tongue and voting Democrat. Please for sake don't pick Biden, otherwise I will reconsider. I lost a lot of my support for him almost immediately. I, and many of my fellow voters, really thought it was an act. I really thought he would be presidential once he won. I also never thought he would win and couldn't bring myself to vote for Hillary. But when he won and was still saying terrible things and giving away secrets and being a general prick to everyone, it was clear he was who he ran as. The child detainment also really got to me. I'm the type of guy who can make excuses for awful things if I think that there's legal justification, at least I could understand it. In the beginning, it made sense to a certain extent. You can't put kids in jail, parents arrested of crimes lose their kids, illegal immigration is a crime, etc. But then my wife looked at me and said, right, but these are kids. How would you feel if those were your kids? Would they deserve it? And I realized how wrong it actually was. And then we started losing them? What the At the end of the day, I believe in family, country, party when it comes to politics. And after everything Trump did that I knew was bad for my family and my country, party wasn't an excuse anymore. It was weird too, because as soon as my eyes were opened, I started to see all of these things in a different light. Like how bad he was. I'm a staunch conservative, who voted for Obama twice, but whatever, and a Christian, and this dude is clearly not a Republican, or at least doesn't hold the moral position that I always tried my best to vote for, and he's definitely not someone Jesus would support, that's for sure. Made me ashamed of my vote, and I never want to feel that way again. I supported him initially cause I hated Clinton, but it didn't take me long at all to realize Trump actually has a mental disability and shouldn't be leading the country. And I have nothing against mentally handicapped people, but I don't think a malicious one should be making the big decisions for us. When fake news became his catchphrase, suggesting your followers only listen to you and no one else. He controls what an entire demographic thinks because they refuse to accept credible sources that disagree with them. His tweets. They're absolutely pathetic. The dude literally acts like a middle school bully. They were also pretty bad before the election, but I thought they would stop afterwards. Nope. I'm an independent voter. I want to vote for the Democratic nominee in the upcoming election, but the only two candidates I trust are Mayor Pete and Andrew Yang, both whom don't seem to have much of a shot at getting the nomination. Economically conservative yet socially liberal. Trump promised to come in and clean house and fire the corrupt. I voted for him so he could kick the economy into gear. Realized a year after he's a bigot who acts like a bully and held government employees' income hostage to get his wall paid for by the US. Last straws though was not outright condemning Charlottesville and giving little to no attention to Puerto Rico when 3,000 people died. I was done. I'm voting for the left next year. Big mistake to think he would do a lot of good besides around about his stupid wall. Oh, and he also thought Colorado bordered Mexico, so I just had to throw that in there as proof he's an idiot. Was registered Republican from 1988 to 2016. Voted for Bush 1 and voted Independent or Democrat in every other contest. Funny as it seems, it took Trump to get me to abandon the GOP and finally make the switch to dummy, even though it always aligned with my personal beliefs more. Stupid what your parents' views can do to yours. Also, Trump. While learning more about economics, I simultaneously discovered that he was in fact an idiot. I have since become a lefty, and will be voting Democrat. I voted for him reluctantly. I don't remember there being any single straw that broke the camel's back, but I was done with him fairly early on after he took office, when it became clear that he was at least as corrupt as the establishment politicians. I think by the summer of 2017 I'd already decided that there was no way in hell I'd vote for him again. There's not much chance I'll vote for any of the potential Democrats either, so most likely I'll just vote some third-party candidate like I usually do, because I think both parties are self-serving and corrupt. There's no question who my state will go for in 2020, so it doesn't really matter who I personally vote for anyway, except to me. I will say that the holier than thou "I can't believe anyone voted for him in 2016" responses are a big reason why so many people said you and voted for him in 2016, and why so many people still support him. You will never bring anyone around to your viewpoint by attacking and insulting who they are because you disagree with who they voted for.